Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Barbara Lee. Congresswoman, thank you very much for being with us. On impeachment, is she saying that it divides the country, meaning that unless the Senate is going to go for it, why go down this path? Because it'll only blow back against Democrats. But what if there is a real reason to go forward with impeachment? What do you say to fellow Democrats?
Well, Andrea, nice to be with you. And I believe she did say unless there is conclusive evidence. And that's what these committee hearings are conducting. Their investigations, their oversight responsibilities. The Mueller report still has not come out. We need to see what that has said. I, for one, believe that no one, including the president, is above the law. And so I believe that we have to continue, allow the investigations and the process to come forward. And then we shall see what the conclusion is from our committees and from the Mueller report.
But if the Mueller report is damaging, if the committee evidence is damaging, but Republicans are still holding firm in the Senate, which would have to convict should there be an impeachment vote coming from the House, would you still agree with the Speaker that you should not go down that road, or should you push the envelope?
Andrea, I think right now that's a hypothetical. I personally have voted for impeachment twice, and I think that we'll see what the evidence shows. But I think it's going to be up to the public also, because Republicans would have to evaluate the evidence and really come together with Democrats to form a conclusion around impeachment, yes or no. And so it's very important that this be a bipartisan effort if, in fact, that takes place, because I agree it would be if in fact, Republicans and Democrats don't agree. But we have to make sure that we understand that these investigations are extremely important. The outcome and the conclusions of the Mueller report are extremely important to make those decisions. We aren't there yet.
Now, the president has been going after Democrats for the resolution that you all voted for. It was a compromise. It did not criticize Congresswoman Omer specifically. It embraced an anti-hate resolution so broad that some people said it basically said not enough about anti-Semitism. So Sarah Sanders was asked about this and pressed about whether the president actually said at Mar-a-Lago, reportedly, that Democrats hate Jewish people. What about the president trying to divide the party further on this issue and go after Democrats for not being strong enough on anti-Semitism?
Well, first of all, that's who he is. And if he said those remarks, they're despicable and they're outrageous. The resolution that we supported, it condemned anti-Semitism, it condemned Islamophobia, racism, bigotry, in all of its forms. That's who we are. We need to condemn hatred in every respect. It would be outrageous for a president to say this, and I hope he did not say that.
I want to also ask you about the Medicare and the other budget cuts and the Trump budget writ large, because we're talking about more than $845 billion in reductions for, these programs, these social programs. We're talking about $1.9 trillion in cuts for mandatory programs like Medicaid and Medicare. And our colleague Jeremy Bash pointed out that the gimmicks here are pretty extraordinary, because they don't count the tax cuts continuing, which are clearly not going to be repealed. So they don't even account for the tax cuts that still have to be paid for. And they've put a whole lot of defense spending, more than $1 trillion, off budget in these offshore contingency accounts. So it pushes deficit spending even farther beyond what the eye could see.
Andrea, I serve on the Budget Committee and on the Appropriations Committee, and I can tell you one thing. This budget, quite frankly, it's immoral and it's sinister. When you look at the fact that we said early on, Democrats which did not vote, we did not vote for the tax cut. We said that we would see huge cuts in Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Guess what? This budget verifies that. We also said that the OCO, Overseas Contingency Account, is really a gimmick, and what it does is fund these unauthorized wars off budget. They're asking for $174 billion in defense, yet they're cutting the State Department, our non-defense diplomatic initiatives, by 23%. This shows who they are. They really have this notion that, remember Steve Bannon, who said he wanted to deconstruct the administrative state? Well, they're going after domestic spending in a way that is so damaging to the most vulnerable, to the middle class, to working men and women. It's not a budget that we can support. You even look at what he's put in there for his fake wall, fake emergency. He talks about putting in over $8 billion for that. So it's unacceptable, and I believe it's dead on arrival.
Congresswoman Barbara Lee, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much for being with us. And
Thank you.